Hello, everyone. If you're in the tech world or even studying computer science, you've definitely heard the term DBMS thrown around. But what does it really mean to use one? What are the actual trade-offs? Well, in this explainer, we're going to break down the pros and cons of a database management system. This is the kind of stuff you really need to know, especially for job interviews and exams.
So let's start with a problem that I'm pretty sure will sound very familiar. Just imagine for a second, tons of data just scattered everywhere. You've got different files, you've got endless spreadsheets, maybe even some information on actual paper. It's just chaotic. Finding what you need is a pain, and trying to check if it's all correct, that's a proper nightmare. We call this data chaos, and trust me, it's a massive headache for any organization.
So, how do you fix this mess? Well, let me introduce you to the hero of our story, the Database Management System, or DBMS. At its core, a DBMS is the software that brings order to all that madness. You could think of it as the manager, the gatekeeper, and the chief organizer for all your data, making sure everything is kept in one single, neat, accessible place.
All right, so how exactly does this amazing tool solve our data problems? Let's dive into the good stuff first. Let's talk about its advantages. You could even call them its superpowers, because that's what makes a DBMS so valuable.
To really get a feel for its power, just imagine your DBMS is like a highly skilled librarian for all your data. Now, this librarian takes care of three very important things. First up, data centralization. This means every single piece of information is in one central library. No more lost files, no more confusing duplicate versions. Second, data integrity. The librarian enforces strict rules to make sure every single fact is accurate and consistent. And finally, data security. The most important information is kept under lock and key, and only people with the right permissions can get to it.
So, what's the ultimate benefit of all this? Well, when all your data is centralized, reliable, and secure, you create something really powerful called a single source of truth. What this means is that everyone in the company, whether they're in marketing or engineering, is working from the same playbook. And that is incredibly valuable for making smart, consistent decisions. And our librarian isn't just organized, they're also super efficient. A DBMS offers efficient data retrieval, so you can find any piece of information in seconds, not hours. It has something called concurrency control, which is a fancy way of saying lots of people can access the library at the same time without creating chaos. It also has scalability, which means your library can grow to hold millions, even billions of books. And with data independence, you can completely rearrange the shelves in the back, and the applications that rely on that data won't even notice. Pretty cool, right?
So as you can see, a DBMS gives you total control over your entire data universe. But with anything this powerful, that control comes with a whole lot of responsibility. And this brings us to the other side of the coin.
Okay, now we have to talk about the trade-offs. It's really important to get this. These aren't really failures of a DBMS. It's more like the practical cost you have to be ready for when you decide to use such a powerful system.
The biggest trade-off, by far, is the investment. Let's go back to our library analogy. Building a great library and hiring expert librarians, well, that's expensive. A DBMS requires a high initial cost for the software and hardware, you need skilled professionals to manage it, and the setup is quite complex. And if you cut corners on any of that, you're risking poor performance, security problems, and even system downtime.
And the challenges don't just stop after the initial setup. You've also got to deal with ongoing issues. For example, vendor dependency. You can get locked in with one provider, which makes it really difficult and expensive to switch later on. Then there's data migration. Imagine having to move your entire library to a new building. It's a massive, complicated headache. And finally, you have system downtime. If your librarian needs a day off for upgrades or maintenance, the whole library might have to close, and that affects everyone who depends on it.
So, we've seen the incredible power, and we've also seen the significant costs. Now it's time for the final balancing act to really understand the big picture.
Look, at the end of the day, it all boils down to this. On one side, you get the amazing power of centralization, control, security, and efficiency, but on the other side, you pay the price in terms of complexity, cost, and potential risks like downtime. The decision to use a DBMS is always a trade-off between getting all that control and managing the risks that come with it.
So the most crucial point is this. A DBMS is an incredibly powerful tool, but it is not a one-size-fits-all solution. Using a full-blown DBMS for a small, simple project is like using a sledgehammer to hang a picture frame. It's just overkill.
The real skill is knowing when you actually need that kind of power and when a much simpler solution will do the job just fine.
And that leaves us with one final, very important question to think about. For all its incredible power, a DBMS isn't always the right tool. So, when is a simple spreadsheet actually the smarter choice? The answer to that question is really what separates a good developer from a great one. Thanks for joining this explainer.